Dear followers, friends, viewers, I'm always myself. Do I scare you? I'm kidding, but today I will talk you about something really creepy, disturbing and unexpected even for me. But everything I'm going to tell you, then I will show you the concrete proofs with extremely rare documents. So what I'm going to reveal you, it's not a perverse fantasy of mine, but the truth. I will show you extremely rare, but unfortunately in this case rare and real documents. Unfortunately, reality is more horrifying than fiction. I will talk about the real and most bloody serial killer, perverted, nuns, and really disturbing real topics happened. As all the sexual perversions of these nuns, horrifying murders, rapes, blasphemies, real demons. So I warn you since now, if these topics can disturb your sensitivity and some images I'm going to show you can disturb the sensitivity of the viewers. So I warn you since the beginning of this documentary. So I can tell you that when you hear the nun, nowadays the most famous nun is the one you watch at the cinema or in TV. When you hear the nun, immediately in your mind you see Thaisa Farmiga playing the role of Sister Irene in that convent in Romania, fighting against the demon Valak with the aspect of scary, horrible, Evilish nun. And of course you think about the saga The Conjuring with Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson. In the collective imagination, the image of the nun since many centuries ago have been seen like a scary, brutal, Evilish nun, but also in the opposite imagination, also like a sexy, controversial image capable to arouse perverse sex fantasies. It's so true, because not these ones, but the most horrifying crimes and the maximum lustfulness in the world of these perverted nuns happened, and I can tell you much, much, much worse than fiction. I can tell you that reality is more horrifying than fiction. So, I start with the Italian nun, Sister Maria Luisa, the most lustful and Evilish serial killer nun of Italy, but also almost of the world. And now I immediately make you watch at my personal computer these very rare images. First, I'll show you how Sister Maria Luisa was very beautiful, sensual, and so you can understand her sex crimes. But then she was an English pitiless serial killer in Italy ever. So I'm going to show you when she was very young and stunning beauty, and then when she was old, she got possessed. Because I start with making you immediately see this nun. She was often figured in this. She was so. I immediately make you see. Okay, this is Sister Maria Luisa. Of course, her face was so enchanting and beautiful. Of course, the horns are how to describe her better, because under this ethereal beauty there was a pitiless serial killer. She did all the worst crimes ever. And then I want to show you how much she was really beautiful. This is a photo of Sister Maria Luisa, of course without horns. Look at how much beautiful, extremely beautiful she was. So when she operated, she was under the Pope. The Pope was Pio the Ninth. I want to tell you that here in Italy, even if the Church made Pio the Ninth beatified, I'm really skeptical in this choice, because since I was born in Italy, even my old dead grandmother told me so many stories about this Pope, considered one of the most controversial ones. This was the Pope, the famous Pope. This was the famous Pope Pio the Ninth. The Church made him beatified, but according to all the people, since I was born in Italy, he hadn't a good reputation, maybe only in the Catholic Church. But so I start immediately. Sister Maria Luisa was born in 1832 in Rome. Her parents were Domenico Ridolfi and Teresa Cioli. She was born in the parish of Saint Quirico in the district Monti, and at the age it was one of the poorest quarters of the city of Rome. She studied, in the beginning, she studied at the school of Franciscans friars. Her mother died prematurely and she was forced to come back home. Because she had two younger sisters, and her father, she talked about her father, and she considered her father a humble donuts cooker. And with this term, she didn't mean positive. With this term, she didn't mean a positive meaning, but she didn't want to live in a poor way because she was interested in money, many money. So when she knew Maddalena Salvati, she was very, very rich, and she collaborated with the prominent priest Vincenzo Pallotti, who at the end had been made saint from the Catholic Church, and also friend of Agnese Firao, who placed her under her protective wing. After having been financed by the Brotherhood of the Holy Rosary, she succeeded in entering in the rich and very famous monastery of Saint Ambrogio in Rome. Her ascent in the ecclesiastical field was extraordinary. So she became very young, already teacher of the novices. And then, when she was only 25, she became vicar of the monastery. But Sister Maria Costanza didn't agree about it, because she considered, and she was right, and here we have at her first pitiless murder. Mother Maria Costanza considered Sister Maria Luisa not suitable to her role and too much young. But suddenly, Sister Maria Costanza got ill from a lung infection, and when it was asked to make her visit by a doctor, Sister Maria Luisa ghost, and she succeeds in convincing the superior mother not to make her cure. So on January the 23rd, 1858, Sister Maria Costanza worsened and then died. This is the first murder of Sister Maria Luisa. And according to all those people and accomplices, nuns with her, she bragged, "I just solved and eliminated an obstacle." But on October 1858, the young novice Sister Maria Agostina was hit by religious ecstasies and mystical visions, and it was a long time that in that monastery happened supernatural events and phenomenons. And it was said that the Virgin Mary appeared to, of course, Sister Maria Luisa and made her write letters in which, of course, she praised Sister Maria Luisa, of course, and already in the monastery of Saint Ambrogio, she was already considered a saint. However, in reality, really, Sister Maria Agostina was hit by real mystical visions, and she also had these religious ecstasies and a direct contact with Virgin Mary, who told her not good revelations about Sister Maria Luisa. After a few time, Sister Maria Agostina got ill. She had a terrible fever that didn't end up. Ulcers in her mouth and in her throat, loss of weight, and in few days she died. Second murder. In 1859, now I'm going to talk about something really sexual perverted, hot topic, so be strong and ready. Another nun, the nun Sister Maria Giuditta, started to suffer from a serious inflammation of the intestine, ulcers on her neck. So this nun, Maria Giacinta, was taken into the cell of Sister Maria Luisa in place of Sister Maria Agnese. In that seal, Sister Maria Giacinta, in the seal of Sister Vicar Maria Luisa, she discovered an obscene secret book. In this book, there were drawn figures of women and men completely naked and perfectly drawn in their genitals. And these drawn figures in this forbidden book had sex, and there were all the possible obscene sexual acts. However, this discovery in the beginning troubled Maria Giacinta, but then she got fascinated and she was seduced and she had sex, starting a real hot sexual relationship with the nun Sister Maria Luisa. Have you understood? Have you understood what I'm just telling you? Okay. They became secret lovers. They had so much sex. However, Sister Maria Luisa wanted to kill her, even if she was her secret love and she had sex many times. So even her secret nun lover, Maria Giacinta, started to suffer. However, this time the doctor realized that Maria Giacinta was suffering from serious disturbs. So he visited her, discovering a poisoning from an exaggerated quantity of opium and giving her an antidote. He saved her life. Instead, Sister Maria Felice, she was a novice and she was only 22 years old, realized what it was happening in that monastery. So she thought to the nuns what it was happening in that monastery. But suddenly she got sick. Doctors attempted to save her and cured her with many bloodlettings, but she died too. Some months before, Princess Sister Caterina, and make me explain you this. In the last centuries, above all in the 19th century, but also many centuries ago, in rich families, in noble families, it was prestigious to have among the daughters at least a daughter was a nun, and at least one of the sons was a priest, because it was a symbol of richness, prestige, and also, of course, as I just told you, richness, because at the time in church, it's not like nowadays that let me accept the highest ecclesiastical spheres. Forgive me, but it's the truth. Normal priests and nuns earn few money, so it's not so a prestige to become a priest or a nun, but at that time it was like having a noble title, also because a nun could become a vicar or abbess in a monastery or a convent, and also having at least a son who was a priest could become bishop, archbishop, and so on. So it was a prestige, not like nowadays that if there is not a real vocation, not many families, also rich families, are so enthusiastic to have a daughter who becomes nun or a son who becomes priest, only if there is a real, true vocation, okay? So, at that time, Katharina was a German princess, but, of course, she was a princess, and she became also nun. So, she was Sister Katharina. Katharina told her cousin, the Archbishop, as I told you before, in family, in fact, her cousin in the beginning was priest, then bishop, and then archbishop, with all the powers and the rich money. He was rich because at that time the Catholic Church was a symbol of not also spiritual richness, but also material money. So, Katharina told her cousin, the Archbishop, Ogenole Schilling-Fürst, that somebody wanted to kill her. Because the Princess Nun Katharina of Hohenzollern Sigmarinfen, she was a close relative of the following King of Prussia and the Emperor Guglielmo I. So, her health, and there wasn't an explanation, she was healthy. Then, suddenly, her... So, I was just telling you that the nun Princess Katharina, her health suddenly worsened after having had an heated discussion with Suor Maria Luisa, and so because the nun Caterina intercepted a letter sent to Sister Maria Luisa from by the American Peter Kreuzburg. And in that letter, there were obscene writings talking about the very hot sex and sexual relationship Peter Kreuzberg had with Sister Maria Luisa. So, Caterina, thanks to her cousin, the Archbishop, got by the Pope Pio IX the possibility to leave the monastery of Saint Ambrogio. Otherwise, she would have been the next victim. Oh my gosh! So, the Inquisitor Vincenzo Leone Salua started an investigation, and after months of interrogations and a trial lasted 2 years, Maria Luisa confessed to have sexually abused many novices with rights that she justified these obscene and dirty practices. She told her novices that these sexual practices were necessary to purify their genitals. Instead, let me tell you the word that many people still in 2024 are very so scary to tell you. It was rape! And brutal rapes, I'm going to tell you. So, Sister Maria Luisa confessed to have had sex with the novices, consentient novices, and not consentent novices. For example, like I told you, Sister Jacinta had been seduced and she was happy to have sex and all that sexual relationship with the beautiful Sor Maria Luisa. But all other novices who weren't consentient, she raped them. She confessed to have had with these novices oral sex and even to have sodomized them. Sodomized them. She revealed that she herself, when she was novice, had been forced to have sex and a sexual relationship with the old Abbess. And she revealed to have been forced to have sex with this old Abbess, and also other sexual, extremely perverse sexual acts. Then moreover, she confessed to have had sexual acts and sex with Father Jesuit confessor Giuseppe Peters, who was called Joseph Klautzen. And at this point, Father Jesuit confessor Joseph Klautzen admitted to have had sex and obscene sexual erotic acts with Sister Maria Luisa, stating that he was completely bewitched by Maria Luisa. He believed that the letters she wrote were true, that she was in direct contact with the Virgin Mary, and he believed that the sex and sexual perverted acts they made were a shape of purification and spiritual assistance. And Sister Maria Luisa also revealed to have had sex and other sexual, very hard acts with Father Jesuit confessor Giuseppe Lezziroli, and Lezziroli confessed the same words of Father Peters. I was completely bewitched by Sister Maria Luisa, and I thought that sex and all those obscene erotic acts were to purify my soul. So, in the end, the charges were against Sister Maria Luisa: fake sanctity, poisonings, the heretic cult of Pharaoh. I explain you better. This Pharaoh cult was condemned as heretic in 1816 by Pope Pio VII against Maria Agnese Pharaoh, who claimed to possess supernatural powers. But this cult wasn't followed only by Sister Maria Luisa, but also in almost the whole monastery of Saint Ambrogio in Rome. And there had been many deaths and suspicious murders that involved not Maria Luisa, but confessor priests and even bishops in Rome. The verdict was issued by 16 consultants and confirmed by the Pope Pio IX. The monastery was closed and Father Lezziroli was condemned to an year of prison in Saint Eusebio, that instead was a Roman house of the Company of Jesus, where it was forbidden for him to confess and to preach for just a year. Then Father Lezziroli died reconciled with himself and with the church on April the 29th in 1878 in Castel Gandolfo. Father Peters was condemned at 3 years of prison in the instead Jesuit community of Galloro, where it was forbidden for him to confess and to preach for 3 years. Then he only spent 2 years in this community because he was so much good, and so he returned to do the priest. He was able to confess, to preach, to do masses, and so on. Suor Maria Luisa was condemned to 20 years of prison. But this punishment was reduced to 18 years by the Pope Pio IX. And think about that, this was a very, very light punishment, because there weren't considered the murders. She hadn't been considered a serial killer, and there hadn't been considered the murders of the nuns, the poisonings, and the rapes. Think about that, the murder, if you killed somebody by poisonings, there was immediately a sentence to death, and this sentence was shooting at the wall. But in the convent of Saint Ambrogio, everything happened. Rapes, murders, obscene acts, and think about that the Catholic Church covered this shame for almost 2 centuries, when they were preaching to be pure, not to have not pure acts. It was a daily bread to rape the abbesses, and the older nuns raped the novices. And the greatest priests, bishops, highest powers, the highest ecclesiastical powers raped novices. So this is the reason why they didn't recognize Maria Luisa rapes. It's a very hard topic, but I have concrete documents, and fortunately I don't live in Vatican City. So in Vatican City there are the acts, and then fortunately the following popes, until now, then there have been Pope Ratzinger, Pope Benedetto XVI, and now Pope Francisco, who is a great the Pope. So it's possible to reveal all these things thanks to the latest popes. Really? Otherwise, many religious ones did all the necessary to cover up these horrifying shames and crimes. So, and in these suspected murders, deaths, in this case, it wasn't involved Sister Maria Luisa, but or simple priests, but also the highest ecclesiastical spheres. Here I have official documents, then I'll show you other creepy material at my personal computer. This is the reason why I have the courage to tell you these very hard secrets, okay? Because I have concrete proofs, okay? And also they were involved the order of Jesuits. So Sister Maria Luisa was sent in the house, in the community of penitence at Terme. And Terme, it was like a holiday. But after 7 years, Dr. Caltani said that she was a horny woman like a wild animal. So, the following year, she was sent to asylum. But even there, I guess how she convinced doctors not to get numb, but all those strong, heavy pills and treatments in mental hospitals. After only a year, they said the medical treatments don't work, so she's completely free. So she was liberated and accompanied to her family. But, however, in 1870, her father, Domenico Ridolfi, called on the Holy Office, stating that her daughter was unmanageable, saying these exact words: "She treats her sister as prostitutes. She pours everything over. She's unmanageable. She's impossible." So, after a few weeks, there had been an historical fact, the capture of Rome. So, then we don't know anything else about Sister Maria Luisa. We don't know if we know, because I have her most recent photo. And think about the photos I just made you watch at the beginning of this documentary. Sister Maria Luisa was amazing. She was an incredible beauty, really beautiful. And now I'm going to show you how she was when she was pretty old. You don't recognize her, and when you watch at that rare photo, the photo speaks by itself, okay? The thing for sure, her extraordinary beauty didn't exist anymore, and she was worse than Linda Blair playing in The Exorcist. Really worse. We don't know when she died, where she had been buried, but then the church immediately decided that the case of Saint Ambrogio in Rome had to be silenced. Only in 1976, a doctoral student of theology had access to the documents from the archive of the Hohenzollern, and above all from of the Nun princess, very beautiful. Then I will make you see how beautiful Nun Princess Katharina was, and then when she was old, she was a normal old nun. And so he had these documents by the archives of Princess Katharina. Let me tell you that of course, in Vatican, they cover up this case, and it's ridiculous. They revealed this horrifying, creepy case with murders, rapes, scandal only at the end of the 90s. And this nun and all those scandals in the monastery of Saint Ambrogio in Rome started to happen in the 19th century. Oh my God! I tell you the courage of this director, that you must know that maybe you have watched this movie, because it's considered a thriller, horror, erotic, quite soft porn movie of 1979. And I immediately tell you the movie. The title of this movie is The Killer Nun. The Killer Nun, by the director Giulio Berruti, released in 1979, and it was forbidden. So in Vatican it was completely banned. Here in Italy there wasn't, of course, a spot about this movie. I don't even know if this movie was transmitted at the cinema. I can tell you that it was forbidden for people who were under 18 years old. Of course, I watched this movie, so I agree with it. But the story of the Killer Nun It wasn't a fictional story invented by Giulio Berruti. No, Giulio Berruti told the real story of Sister Maria Luisa, and then she changed the name of the killer nun from Maria Luisa in Gertrude. Gertrude is the name of the very famous nun of Monza in the betrothed an amazing book by Alessandro Manzoni. So the killer nun was called Gertrude, but the story was the story of Sister Maria Luisa. This is the reason why Vatican banned it, and in Italy they tried to cover up the release of this movie. But I can tell you that this movie, you could buy this movie in VHS. In VHS. And think about who was the very sexy killer nun of the movie? Anita Ekberg. The splendid, gorgeous Anita Ekberg played the role of Sister Gertrude in The Killer Nun 1979. I can tell you that this movie, of course, it wasn't a pure movie. I can describe this movie horror thriller movie, extremely erotic, real to soft porn, but for people who are more than. This is Sister Maria Luisa. Do you recognize her from that so wonderful and beautiful girl I made you see in the beginning of this documentary? But look at her. She wasn't a normal old nun. This is, as soon as I watched this photo, I think that the photo speaks by itself. This nun was possessed by the devil. This is not these are not the eyes of a normal old nun. Look at her. This is the photo of a possessed nun and not the photo of a normal old nun. She's really creepy. Scares me a lot. Oh my God. So, have you understood that I think that Sister Maria Luisa at some point got possessed by the devil to do her horrifying crimes? It's simple. Just watch at this photo. This was one of the last photos of Sister Maria Luisa, and she wasn't so sexy to seduce everybody anymore. Oh my God. And now instead I make you see the photos of Princess Katharina. She was good. Look. She was very beautiful and very good. She was a real devoted nun. This was really, really beautiful, amazing. This was the Princess Nun Katharina. Thanks to her, we discovered what the Catholic Church wanted to cover up and tried to cover up for 2 centuries. We must thank Katharina. And this was the nun Princess Katharina when she was old. As you may see, she was a normal, comfortable nun, old nun. She was doing the stocking. So, of course, she wasn't like Sister Maria Luisa, the Evilish, demonic nun I've just made you see in her last photos when she was old. Instead, Katharina was a very good-hearted person and an old comfortable nun. Now, many of you ask me, but the other Italian, excuse me, the other Italian very famous nun, I'm talking about the nun of Monza, the controversial nun, the bad nun, in the Betrothed by Alessandro Manzoni, released for the first time in 1827. Now, I want to make you a surprise. This lovely and very beautiful nun was the nun of Monza. Yes, the controversial nun in the masterpiece of Alessandro Manzoni. And I can tell you that Manzoni freely got inspiration by this nun, because I want to tell you her real story in brief. So, the nun of Monza in the Betrothed, in Italian we say I Promessi Sposi, by Alessandro Manzoni. The nun of Monza is nun Sister Gertrude. Instead, her real name was Mariam De Leyva, who became in 1591 nun Sister Virginia Maria in the convent of Monza. And now I make you see other photos. So her real name was Mariam De Leyva, and This is another photo. I want to make you see her clearly because she was very, very beautiful. This was the famous Italian nun of Monza. And the description of Alessandro Manzoni was similar. But this nun hadn't a so-called expression and face, as you may see in this real photo. And I can tell you that then she became, in 1591, Nun Sister Virginia Maria. So the real name of the nun of Monza as nun was Virginia Maria and not Gertrude. And in the latest times here in Italy, we have just discovered a great news. I want to, of course, share with you. Immediately, I want to make you see this. This is another photo of, it's better to say portrait, but at that time, portraits were the same than photos nowadays. So, this is another beautiful photo of Suor, of Sister. Look how she was beautiful, really, really beautiful. The nun of Monza. In the last discoveries, you must know that at the end of her life, or at least in the second part of her life, I immediately make you see, because I want to give you a shocking news. This was another picture of the nun of Monza. In the last part of her life, she really had the vocation, because the thing for sure is that she was the daughter of a noble family, and as I explained you before about Sister Princess Caterina, who really had the vocation, the thing for sure is that this nun, the nun of Monza, real name Mariam, didn't have the vocation at all, and she didn't want to become a nun, but her family forced her to enter the monastery because her other sisters were all married. So in the beginning, this nun, of course, she was controversial. Of course, she had secret lovers, and there were rumors about a murder, but not confirmed 1,000%. But in the second part of her life, she had a real vocation, and she died close to sanctity. So She was an angel if compared to nun sister Maria Luisa. But now I want to reveal you something, that this nun, because she was, as I've just made you see, she was very, very beautiful and full of grace, the nun of Monza. And think about that the Italian poet Giovanni Pascoli, when he wrote the dark, nowadays Giovanni Pascoli would have been defined a dark Gothic poet and writer, but at that time, at the end of the 19th century and in the beginning of the 20th century, of course, the word dark Gothic weren't so used like nowadays. Giovanni Pascoli, I really suggest you, absolutely suggest you, his masterpiece poems and much more. I made you see immediately. This was a young Giovanni Pascoli. Giovanni Pascoli was in his poems, there is a not very famous poem. It was one of my favorite poems by Giovanni Pascoli. And when I studied at liceo, at the high school, I studied also the poems. I wasn't forced to, because, you know, that I am a dark Gothic lady. I'm also a writer, and if I was born in the age of Pascoli, I would have been, of course, a romantic and above all, decadent writer. It was like saying a dark Gothic, macabre writer, poet nowadays. And so he wrote the poem. I really suggest you this poem. Nun Virginia. And it's, I can tell you that it's one of the most macabre, darkest, Gothic poems by Giovanni Pascoli, because death goes to take Nun Virginia's soul. It's very dark. I suggest you this poem because even Giovanni Pascoli, when he wrote Nun Virginia, got inspiration from the Nun of Monza. And I want to make you see here, Giovanni Pascoli, aged. And now, do you want to know the most terrible serial killer, Evilish nun in the history of the Evilish serial killers, nuns? Okay. I immediately make you see the worst, really the worst Evilish serial killer in the history of the Nuns. I'm talking about Nun, or it's better to call her this one. This was the Abbess in a monastery in Greece. Her name was Mariam To the most pitiless, Evilish, cruel serial killer in history ever. Not only because she had a very, very evilish, demonic and rotten heart, but also because of the number of her victims. She committed all the kinds of crimes possible on this earth. She tortured her believers, nuns, in a terrible way, and those people sick who were looking for her help. She killed at least 177 people, and among these people there were 50 little children, and among these little children there were also newborns, died in the most evilish way. I immediately make you see other photos of this serial killer, of this monster nun, soon become Abbess. This is another photo of Mariam To, also called with the name Mother Rasputin, and other names. For example, in the beginning, she was known as Mariam of Keratea, then Mariam Soulakiotis, then Mother Rasputin, and many, many others. She did the most horrifying crimes in history. She was really, 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 really devilish. I'm not kidding. Okay, she was really, really an evilish person. This was a photo of Mariam Soulakiotis, aged. I can tell you that she did really, she's the number one serial killer Evilish nun than Abbess. And I want to tell you that this nun made people tortured. She was also the most bloody nun in history. Think about that 177 people, among these people many children, had been tortured to death, beaten to death, made them choke in their blood. Other people had been died. They closed these people in cells and made them died from hungriness. They were starving, absolutely a monster of the last century, because she died in 1954. And I swear that in the second and final part, the following one will be the final chapter of this documentary dedicated to the serial killer Evilish Nun, with extremely rare but real videos, documents, really disturbing, shocking, and you will know everything about this monster. And now, the moment I know you are waiting for. I'm talking about the Nun and the demon Valak. Are you ready to know the real story of the Nun? Okay? Because it's creepiest and more shocking and disturbing than reality. Much more that you can imagine. I'm not kidding. I immediately start telling you that when many people ask, but the Nun is a fiction or the Nun really existed? So, they all answer you, it's a fiction, but it's inspired by a real fact happened in the past. So, I didn't get this way of talking. What the hell? Is it fiction or is it inspired by a true event? Let me tell you that the couple Ed and Lorraine Warren, I told you everything about them in my previous documentaries, several documentaries, when I also talk about the case of Arnie Johnson, The Devil Made Me Do It, The Conjuring, the third chapter of the saga, The Conjuring 3, and so on. For people who haven't watched my previous documentary, I can tell you that Lorraine and I want to show you these beautiful photos. Excuse me. This is Lorraine Warren, who died at 92 with the wonderful Vera Farmiga, who always plays the role of Lorraine Warren, with Patrick Wilson playing the role of Ed Warren. You must know, for people who still don't know it, that the couple Warren were the most expert in supernatural, paranormal, and they also investigated and solved cases like Annabelle, even Amityville possession, even the case of poltergeist, and they investigated and solved more than 10,000 cases. And they brought all those haunted dolls objects in their Museum of Occult, now closed when also Lorraine Warren died. They were the most expert psychics, but also demonologists, and they got to know that in the church of Borley, in the south of England, it was said that it was haunted. So they decided to visit this church, because many priests, religious people were quarreling about the presence of ghosts, and even bad forces in the church of Borley in the south of England. So the couple Warren decided in 1970 to go to the church of Borley to perceive if the church was really haunted or not. And listen what they discovered. And then I will show you real official photos given by a very kind, the son-in-law of the couple Warren, Tony Spera, who is the husband of the only daughter of the Warren. So, thanks to his kind permission, it was possible to get the two photos. And I warn you right now, before telling you some curiosities, that these photos could disturb the sensitivity of the viewers. So I warn you. So let me tell you that the priests, religious people there, said that this church was haunted. And it was said that they saw a headless monk. And during the night, this decapitated monk wrote cryptic messages on the walls. And during the night, they saw an obscure with an evil aspect, a scary nun during the night wandering in the church, and then when they all slept in the middle of the night, they heard scary, dreadful litanies breaking the silence of the night and of the church. So the couple Warren went there in 1970, and a priest told the Warren that a creepy fact happened in this church in I don't know if 1 century or 2 centuries before, because a nun had a sexual secret relationship with a monk, and when she was discovered, she was condemned to death in a very pitiless way. This nun was walled alive in the dungeon of this church. And maybe the monk decapitated could have been the secret lover of this nun, killed in this creepy, horrifying way, walled alive. Lorraine, when she was in this church, suddenly perceives the presence of a nun, and she says these exact words. I feel the presence of a nun in this church, and the crew who was with her, even her husband, weren't able to see nothing. And then she yelled, "Snapped photos right now! Snapped photos right now! I perceive this dreadful nun." And so 2 photographers snapped these 2 extremely rare photos of 1970. Really, and nowadays, for the real kindness of their son-in-law, Tony Spera, we have these extremely rare photos snapped in the church of Borley in the south of England in 1970 without Photoshop, real photos. So he released these photos after the death also of Lorraine Warren. So we must thank Tony Spera, who is the husband of the daughter of the Warren. I immediately make you see the photos, so be ready, be ready. I go. Be ready. Number 1. So this was on the right. The woman you see is Lorraine Warren in the church. Suddenly she says out, I feel a strange, scary nun. Snap photos. So I can tell you that the woman on the right is Lorraine Warren, and she stated to see the nun. So judge by yourself. I can tell you that many people see the nun in those huge glasses where there is a cross just near Lorraine Warren. Other people, I can tell you that in the beginning, when I received this photo, I saw the nun in the glasses too. But then I watched and rewatched this photo, and it seems to me, and it's not say that it's true because this is a documentary, and each one of you can see other things, had other impressions. It doesn't care. Other people see the ghost of a nun, a presence near to the lamp on the left. And I tell you the truth, when I watched this photo, I see a transparent ghost, a transparent kind of nun near the lamp. So many people see something on the left. For example, I myself see this here. Here, according to me, there is the ghost of the nun. Instead, for other people, they see the ghost here. Here, they see the image of the nun. I haven't the official truth, so I can tell you that everybody, my dear followers, fans, viewers, can make an opinion of your own. And now, the second and most shocking photo, no doubt. Here I really see the nun. This is the second and the, according to me, disturbing photo snapped in the church of Borley in 1970. Watch, pay attention at this photo, and you will see the nun, like in the movie. And at the time, there wasn't the movie The Nun. Look. This is what the nuns wear on their heads. But then I see a part of the face of the moon, her features. Pay attention. Look. Disease. The face of the nun in the right part of her face. Look. All the nuns wear this. And then forehead, an eye, the nose, the face and the mouth of the nun. Pay attention. You are watching at the real nun. Her features, her lines on the right. When I've watched this photo for the first time, I was really disturbed and shocked because I'm completely sure the nun. And now I want to keep on telling you other curiosities. So, Lorraine, these are the, excuse me, I want to tell you which were the real words by Lorraine Warren. Lorraine was in her bed reading when she started to feel a presence, something wrong, and she saw a black whirlwind of black mass enter the room. It was like a vortex, blacker than the night. Lorraine prayed to be released from the forces of evil. She told it, leave and go back where you come from. And immediately this presence vanished as she kept repeating those words. Have you understood? It's something shocking. And now I want to tell you that Lorraine, for years, she always saw in her mind the nun, the creepy nun, she saw in the church of Borley in the south of England. At this point, it's normal that you can ask me, but in the nun wasn't the nun, was the demon Valak with the aspect of an Evilish nun, but it was Valak, the demon Valak, with the aspect of an Evilish demonic nun, and not a real nun. And then, where is the connection between this nun Lorraine Warren saw in the church of Borley in England with the nun in the monastery in Romania, the monastery of Saint Carta in Transylvania, Romania? Which is the link, the connection between the two nuns? Now I'm going to reveal you the truth. Be strong. This is the real painting that Lorraine Warren Lorraine made paint to stating, I remember very well what I saw in that church. That figure doesn't leave my mind, so I decide to make you see the real aspect of the nun I saw in that church. And this is the original painting. What the hell? So it wasn't an invention by James Wan or the director Hardy. This was Lorraine Warren who made paint the nun. I was really shocked because it's almost the same you see in the saga The Nun. But now you can ask me, okay, this was the nun Lorraine Warren saw in that church in England, but what about the monastery of Saint Carta in Romania? What about that? And what about Valak? Because this could be the restless ghost of that nun walled alive in England. But what about Romania? And I can tell you that I have all the story step by step, and you will know everything about the nun. Because you must know that, of course, the nun is not properly a real nun. But I don't know if in Borley, but I'm pretty sure the same. You must know that, excuse me, Valak is a demon, and demons can change their aspects and much more. I can tell you now a curiosity. I want to tell you that there is a connection, a direct link between the Church of Borley and the Monastery of Saint Carta in Romania. Valak is a demon, and he hasn't, as you can see in the... Are you sure to have watched all the forbidden books by the Catholic Church? Because in demonology, of course, Valak is another aspect, very, very different from the nun. Valak is the president of hell, is the 62 demon of the 72 demonic entities, and he rules 38 legion of demons. But which is the connection? You will know everything about the nun, the couple Warren, what happened really in the cathedral, abbey in Romania, everything you even don't imagine about Valak, and everything about the most bloody and the fiercest serial killer nun in the history ever. See you at the next and final chapter.